this introduction, I will address 3 topics. First, for whom this series is intended, and how I've envisioned that people would utilize it. Second, a little bit about who I am and why you can trust what I have to say. And third, a brief overview of the series itself. First, the for whom. So my personal background and experiences related to this topic are within the Christian tradition. So as much as I might want to be appealing to everyone, I cannot help but be naturally geared toward addressing the kinds of communities that I have been a part of. Additionally, helping faith communities as they wrestle with what to do with the Bible on this specific conversation has been my main focus as a scholar since 2012. So these are the people I had most in mind as I worked on this series. All of this said, the series could also be useful for non-religious folks who would like to be better informed on what the Bible does and does not say about marriage. So, how do you use this series? An example of what I've envisioned would be to plan to meet once a week, say on Wednesday nights, watch one video, and then spend the rest of the time you have together discussing the content and processing that one passage or topic through this new lens. It is really important to me that you understand that I'm not interested in lecturing for an hour each time about content of the Bible. There are plenty of creative and well-informed venues that offer that kind of content. What I am deeply invested in as a biblical scholar is helping people to be honest about what is being said in this sacred collection called the Bible. I want you to pay attention. I invite you to make these stories come to life in your mind and be thoughtful about what is happening and honest about what might not be there, or how things might be different than you had previously thought. My goal is never to attack someone's faith, though this process sometimes ends up feeling that way. My goal is to help people open the door to new possibilities, to take the time to sit with what the stories are actually saying before jumping to conclusions about what it all means. And I cannot overstress this piece. Sometimes what you end up seeing when you do this comes across as a threat to your faith because it ends up challenging what you've always believed. That's how I experienced it initially, at least. And that's how countless students of mine have experienced this way of engaging the Bible. So, I would ask that you keep in mind that learning something new about the Bible doesn't have to create a crisis of faith. It's possible to see that the Bible is more complex and even different than you previously realized, while keeping a strong faith. But all of this is why these videos are perhaps shorter than you might have expected. My intention is to offer well-informed, scholarly food for thought on the topics or specific passages that I've selected, and to do so as clearly and succinctly as possible. We'll see how well I succeed at that. We can encounter a great deal of new information when we listen to a lecture. But when we have the time to process manageable, bite-sized bits of information and discuss them with people we trust, we are much more likely not only to retain the information, but also to be able to apply it in real life. As an educator at heart, I want to help you wrap your own thoughts and understandings around these issues and to consider their implications for yourselves. I want to help you connect information about the Bible to the way you think about what the Bible is. I guarantee that this process will be challenging and worth it. Next, who am I and can you trust me? For the sake of time, I'll just hit the highlights here. So, I grew up in the Roanoke Valley in southwestern Virginia. And my parents made sure that my brothers and I were active in the church that we attended, a United Methodist congregation. Now, while my own theological commitments have taken several forms over the years, I am grateful for the example of serving others that I learned from those dear people in my home congregation. In high school, I had my own theological journey into much more conservative waters. I began to read the Bible in ways different from my family and the ways modeled by my pastors, for instance. And this is when the Bible took kind of front and center in my own focus, and I should say a very particular way of reading the Bible. Even though I'd had female pastors growing up, for instance, I began to read passages such as 1 Timothy 2:11 and 12 that says, I do not permit a woman to teach or have authority over a man. I read that as an indication that women really were not to be ordained. In fact, I even questioned my own mother about this on the day of her ordination. Can you believe? Who does that? Fortunately for us both, she did not eject me from the van that was hurtling down the highway. Instead, she just smiled and told me her story. So I share this anecdote with you because it captures the reason that I eventually went to seminary and then on to PhD work in biblical studies. I had been of a mind that said I needed to let the Bible dictate how I should live. But humans all around me were going about the business of living into their gifting, which we all believed was a gift from God. And what they were doing was clashing with what I read on the pages of the Bible. Duh! I had to sort it all out. So I went to seminary to learn biblical languages, and then on to earn a PhD in New Testament and early Christianity from Vanderbilt University, after which I was offered a full-time position at a Methodist-affiliated institution teaching biblical studies full-time. Ever the educator, what constantly haunted me was having so many important insights about the Bible but only being able to give it to one undergraduate class at a time. The conviction that so many people in the pews would benefit from this content and these conversations played on repeat in my mind. So that urgency eventually led me to writing the book, Permission Granted, Take the Bible into Your Own Hands, which is an invitation to read, to think deeply, and to ask questions about these biblical stories. In 2012, while I was teaching at Greensboro College, North Carolina had an amendment to the Constitution up for a vote, an amendment that indirectly defined marriage as between a man and a woman. What I saw happening in the backdrop of this amendment was people claiming a specific set of beliefs about human relationships that they absolutely believed were grounded in biblical passages. So wanting to respect people's beliefs, but simultaneously being really upset when the stories they turn to do not say what they think that they do, I had a conviction to educate around this specific issue, and I've been working on this topic ever since. To be clear, I am a cisgender heterosexual woman, and I am not married. I'll let you sort through how these facts about me make me both better suited, perhaps, and at other times less so, to offer objective comments about biblical content related to marriage. But you should know that, in fact, I'm not motivated by needing any idea to be endorsed by the Bible. I'm a biblical scholar who would like you to be better informed about what the Bible says, and perhaps more importantly, does not say about marriage. What you do with the information is up to you. Now, a quick review of what to expect in this series. The first 4 videos delve into the 4 main passages that define biblical marriage for those who use that label. And I don't mean to suggest that those are the only passages a given person might refer to, just that these 4 are consistently in the mix. Those 4 passages are Genesis 1:28, Genesis 2:24, Matthew 19:4-6, and Ephesians 5:31 and 32. As you prepare for these conversations, it would be good for each person to read the surrounding passages or chapters ahead of time. In each video, we will look at the selected verse or verses in their immediate context. What do those passages seem to be interested in? Where are they in the flow of the passage? What kinds of contextual clues do we need to also pay attention to? And so on. We will also consider these verses in their larger context, as in the general biblical storyline or the people for whom these passages were written, how they reflect the worldview of the times in which they were written. There's a difference between simply acknowledging that the Bible embodies the worldview in which it was written and really giving yourself time to reflect on how this might impact the way you view the Bible. My hope is that this series will help you to do the latter quite productively. Then there are 3 videos on what marriages actually look like, or how they were referenced in the Bible in both Christian testaments. There's one video talking about terminology in both testaments. This discussion is geared mostly toward bringing your attention to how far-reaching the decisions by translation committees are. When the English translations do not line up with the Greek or the Hebrew, we might want to reflect upon why that is, and if it matters to us. Next, there is also a video looking honestly at some of the stories about the patriarchs and matriarchs, as well as what is communicated about this kind of a relationship through the various laws in the Torah. With a willingness to possibly see something new in these passages, you might be surprised by what is communicated about the thing we call marriage in the Hebrew Bible. The next video has several nuggets that are intended to help you see, hopefully again with fresh eyes, what is attributed to Jesus and written by Paul on the subject. Finally, there are 3 videos that fall under the label That Which Remains. This label itself, I hope, indicates that there are things being communicated about marriage that go beyond the direct references to it. These last 3 videos are inviting you to think about the enduring effects of biblical passages and ideas on current ideas and conversations about marriage. As with so many other topics in this series, the Makin Babies video will invite you to reflect on something you are probably aware of in a general sense, but maybe haven't spent much focused time and thought on it, right? What is the result of women being depicted as important primarily because of their uteruses? I mean, this isn't the only way, but primarily. The next video, What Are They Modeling?, is organized around 2 ideas. What is the institution of marriage being used to convey? And what kinds of effects do the direct commands in Scripture to people in paired-up relationships have on people today? The third video in this section, Only Heteros, might not be surprising. And in fact, many of you probably go straight to thinking about, oh yeah, David and Jonathan, or Ruth and Naomi, been there, done that, right? But I'm hoping you'll hang in there with me because I'm fairly certain that I will offer you something new in this conversation, some new angle that I think is worth your consideration. So then in the conclusion, in addition to pulling together the content of the series, I will also offer some suggestions on how to use this content in conversations with others that you might be having. So, as I've said, let me reiterate, what I'm interested in doing in this video series is giving you permission to think differently than you have before, permission to consider new perspectives on this thing really important to you. You have permission to think about these stories for yourself, and even perhaps to conclude that they mean different things than what you've been told that they do. All curiosity is welcome and no questions are off limits. One of the most important things for me in getting through seminary, where I was being confronted with all kinds of new and challenging perspectives on theology and God and the Bible, was this conviction I had that if God gave me my mind, then it must be okay to use it, and in particular in something so important as my faith. And if God and the Bible couldn't handle my questions, I'm pretty sure they didn't deserve my devotion. So maybe these convictions will help some of you as you engage challenging ideas in these conversations. To wrap up this introductory video, I would like to bring your attention to a quotation attributed to Aristotle. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain an idea without accepting it. This quotation has been my go-to for helping to set the stage for discussions of all kinds, ever since graduate school. Being able to entertain an idea, think about what that means. It means we will listen not just for what we like or how we might refute it, which happens a lot, but in order to fully grasp this other perspective or set of ideas for their own sake. Even if some of what I'll be suggesting goes in direct contrast to what you may firmly believe, are you able to set aside your convictions long enough to hear and understand this new idea? Would you be able to explain it to someone respectfully and in a way that I'd say, that's what I meant? I hope your conversations will be in service to giving you a more educated mind on this topic. And with these caveats noted, I'd like to make sure that you go over the personal inventory. It is my way of making sure that you are aware of 2 things. 1, how you view the Bible, what you think that it is and is not. And 2, how you might respond to ideas that challenge your core beliefs about the Bible and the meanings that you've held that came from it. And do keep in mind that we are all on a journey. when it comes to this topic and how we use the Bible to engage it. It's a given that you won't see everything the same way your friends and group leader or pastor do. If you're comfortable sharing your responses to the personal inventory, your group leader or pastor would greatly benefit, trust me, from knowing where everyone stands on these topics. See you next time.